The crack of Manuel's palm against Charlene's face silenced the entire Hermes section of Lotte World Mall. For 3 seconds, she couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only taste copper on her lip and feel 200 eyes burning into her skin. Heat bloomed across her cheek, sharp and humiliating, her vision blurred, not from tears, she wouldn't give him tears, but from the sheer shock of it. Manuel had yelled before, manipulated, stolen her savings, and disappeared. But he'd never hit her. Her ex-boyfriend stood there, hands still raised, that familiar cruel smirk twisting his mouth. His new girlfriend, dripping in designer labels, giggled behind perfectly manicured nails. Still shopping in places you can't afford? Manuel's voice carried across the marble floors. Some things never change, huh, Charlene? The Hermes bag in Charlene's hand cost more than Manuel earned in 3 months. But he didn't know that. Nobody from her old Atlanta life knew that 3 months ago. She'd crashed into a stranger outside of Pojangmacha in Itaewon and walked away as Cho Chong-sik's contract wife. Her phone buzzed against her ribs. Once. The emergency alert. Somewhere in this mall, Chong-sik's security had just watched her get slapped. And what Chong-sik's men saw, Chong-sik knew within seconds. Charlene's throat tightened. Her contract husband had 3 rules. She could live her life, spend his money, stay out of his business. But she had to stay safe, stay protected, stay untouched. Manuel had just broken the only rule that mattered. He grabbed her wrist, fingers digging into skin that would bruise. You don't walk away from me. You think because you ran off to Korea... Let go! Her voice came out steadier than she felt. His grip tightened. Make me. The phone buzzed again. Twice now. The second signal meant they were moving. Manuel didn't see the 3 men in black suits closing in from different angles. Didn't notice how the crowd had started to thin, shoppers suddenly remembering they had somewhere else to be. You always were pathetic, Manuel hissed, yanking her closer, running away instead of Mrs. Cho. The voice came from behind her, smooth and cold as winter water. Min-jun, Chong-sik's right hand, the man who made problems disappear. Manuel's hand dropped from her wrist like she'd burned him. Min-jun didn't look at Manuel, his dark eyes fixed on Charlene's reddening cheek, and something flickered there. The kind of professional assessment that calculated exactly how much force had been used and exactly how much would be returned. But here's what Charlene couldn't have known standing in that mall. Min-jun had just sent a photo to his boss, and in a penthouse 15 minutes away, Cho Chong-sik had looked at his wife's bruised face and made a decision that would unravel everything. And if you want to see exactly what a Korean mafia boss does when someone touches his wife, subscribe now. Things are about to get really dangerous. The car is waiting, Min-jun said in Korean, then switched to English. Sir, you should leave Seoul. Tonight would be preferable. Who the hell are you? Manuel puffed his chest, playing tough because he had no idea who he was talking to. Min-jun's smile didn't reach his eyes. Someone you don't want to know. The 3 men materialized from the crowd like shadows. They didn't touch Manuel, didn't need to, just stood there, their presence a promise of violence held on a leash. Manuel laughed. You think I'm scared of... You should be, Min-jun said quietly, but you won't live long enough to learn why. Charlene's hands trembled as Min-jun guided her toward the exit. Behind her, Manuel started threatening lawyers and police and American embassies. He had no idea how little any of that mattered. The November air hit her face, cold enough to make her bruised cheek ache worse. The black SUV idled at the curb, windows tinted so dark she couldn't see inside. But she knew he was there, could feel it like electricity before a storm. Min-jun opened the door. He's been waiting. Charlene's heart kicked up. Not from fear. Chong-sik had never raised his voice to her, never raised a hand. What made her pulse race was the memory of their wedding night, how he'd stood in the doorway of her bedroom and said, "You're safe here. I don't break my promises." She'd believed him then. believed him through 3 months of silent breakfasts where he barely spoke but watched her like she was something he couldn't figure out how to hold without breaking. But she'd never seen him angry before. The interior smelled like his cologne, something dark and expensive with notes of bergamot and danger. He sat in the far seat, perfectly still, perfectly controlled, his scarred hands resting on his knees. Those hands had killed men. She'd pieced it together from overheard phone calls and the way people looked at him, like he was a bomb that might detonate if you breathed wrong. When his eyes found the bruise darkening her cheek, those hands clenched into fists so tight his knuckles went white. The temperature in the car dropped 10 degrees. Who? Not a question, a command wrapped in silk and razors. Just my ex, it's nothing. I can handle... His name, Charlene. She'd never heard him say her name like that before, like it was both a prayer and a threat. Manuel, she whispered. Manuel Webb, but Chong's sick. Please don't... He moved before she could finish, closing the space between them in one fluid motion. His hand came up and Charlene flinched, just slightly, just enough. Chong Sik froze. Something devastating crossed his face. I would never, he said, his voice raw. His fingers hovered a breath away from her bruised cheek, not quite touching. Never, Charlene. The heat of his palm radiated against her skin. She could smell his cologne, feel the barely restrained fury vibrating through him. This close, she could see the silver scar that cut through his left eyebrow, the one he got the night his parents died. And what scared Charlene most wasn't his anger. It was the gentleness in his touch when his thumb finally, so carefully, brushed the corner of her mouth where Manuel's ring had split her lip. By evening, he said quietly, his eyes locked on hers, Manuel Webb will wish he'd never been born. Charlene realized with sudden, devastating clarity that her contract husband, the man who'd married her for convenience, who'd barely touched her in 3 months, was about to burn down the world for her. She just didn't know she was about to burn with him. The penthouse was silent except for the sound of ice clinking in crystal. Chong Sik stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seoul, his back rigid, his scarred hands wrapped around a glass of whiskey he hadn't touched. Charlene lingered in the doorway, her heart still racing from the car ride. He hadn't spoken since they'd left. The mall hadn't looked at her, just sat in that suffocating silence while the city blurred past, his jaw so tight she'd heard his teeth grinding. You should ice that, Chong Sik said finally, his voice flat. He still didn't turn around. Charlene's fingers drifted to her cheek. The swelling had gotten worse. It's fine. It's not fine. The glass hit the bar top hard enough to crack. Nothing about this is fine. She flinched at the sound, hating herself for it, hating that Manuel's violence had crawled under her skin. Chong Sik's shoulders tensed. He'd seen her flinch. Of course he had. The man noticed everything. The way she took her coffee, how she avoided the third step that creaked, the fact that she hadn't really smiled in 3 months. I'm not him, he said quietly. I would never. I know. And she did. Whatever Cho Chong Sik was, mobster, killer, the viper of Gangnam, he'd kept every promise he'd made her. But here's what Charlene didn't understand yet. The promises Chong Sik made to himself were far more dangerous than the ones he made to her. And tonight, watching security footage of her ex's hand connecting with her face, he'd made a promise that would change everything. He turned then, and the look on his face made her breath catch. Fury and something else. Something that looked almost like pain. Tell me about him. Charlene wrapped her arms around herself. Why? It's over. He's nothing. He put his hands on you. That makes him something. Chong Sik moved closer, each step deliberate. Tell me about Manuel Webb. She took a shaky breath. We dated for 2 years in Atlanta. He was charming at first. Then he lost his job and things changed. Borrowed money. Cleaned out my savings and disappeared 6 months ago. You came to Korea 4 months ago. I had to. Loan sharks started coming around. My landlord kicked me out. I scraped together what I could and bought a one-way ticket. Her voice cracked. Figured I'd teach English, work in a restaurant, anything to start over. And then you crashed into me 3 months ago. he said softly, ruined my suit and laughed about it. You should have been furious. I was fascinated. The confession slipped out. His jaw tightened. Do you know how long it had been since someone just laughed at me? Not out of fear, just laughed. The air between them shifted, charged with something that had been building for 3 months. All those silent breakfasts. All those nights she'd heard him pacing next door. Why did you really marry me? Charlene whispered. The truth. Chong-sik was quiet for a long moment. My grandmother's will is real. I need to be married before 30, or everything goes to my cousin. But I could have married anyone, arranged something with one of the families. Then why? Because you looked at me like I was just a man. His voice dropped, rough and honest. Not the viper, not a monster, just someone who'd had bad luck with dry cleaning. He was close enough now that she could see the flecks of amber in his dark eyes, close enough that his cologne wrapped around her, like smoke. And if you're wondering whether Charlene's starting to see her contract husband differently, whether 3 months of distance is about to collapse in one night, keep watching. Because what happens next will change everything between them. When I saw him at the mall on the security feed, before he touched you, I was going to let it go. Chong-sik said quietly. Have Min-jun escort him out. Send him back to Atlanta. Keep it clean. And now? His eyes locked on hers. Now he touched you. Now he humiliated you in public. Now he made you flinch in your own home. Chong-sik, please. I have 3 rules, Charlene. But what you don't know is why. He raised his hand slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, his fingers brushed her uninjured cheek with devastating gentleness. 5 years ago, I couldn't protect the people I loved. My parents died because I was too slow. His thumb traced her jawline, and Charlene forgot how to breathe. I won't be too late again, he whispered. Not for you. The tenderness in his touch made her chest ache. This close, she could see the exhaustion in his eyes, the man behind the monster. What are you going to do? Make sure Manuel Webb understands what happens when you damage something that belongs to me. The possessiveness in his voice should have scared her. Instead, heat pooled low in her stomach. I don't belong to anyone, she whispered, but even she could hear how breathless it sounded. Chong-sik's lips curved into something dark and devastating. Tell me that again when you're not leaning into my touch. She hadn't even realized she'd done it. Tilted her head into his palm, her eyes half closed, her pulse racing against his wrist. This is a contract, she tried again. Contracts can be renegotiated. His thumb brushed her bottom lip, and she felt the touch everywhere. The question is, do you want to? And here's the thing about dangerous men and careful distance. Once the walls start crumbling, there's no putting them back up. Charlene was about to learn that the hard way. Before she could answer, his phone buzzed. Once, twice, 3 times. Chong-sik's expression shifted, went cold and sharp. He pulled away, and Charlene felt the loss of his heat like a physical thing. He looked at the screen. His jaw tightened. What is it? When he looked up, his eyes were black and bottomless. Manuel just checked into the Shilla Hotel, presidential suite. Charlene's stomach dropped. So, let him waste his money. The reservation was made under Mrs. Cho. His voice was deadly calm. Using the phone number from this penthouse, made to look like you invited him here, like you're meeting him in secret. Her blood turned to ice. I would never. I know. But something flickered in his expression, something that looked like doubt. My cousin's lawyer just emailed me the hotel confirmation. They're arguing our marriage is fraud, that you're conspiring with your ex to take my inheritance. How would Manuel even know about your cousin? About the will? Her mind raced. He couldn't. Chong-sik's phone buzzed again. He glanced down, and all the color drained from his face. What? Charlene's voice came out small, scared. He turned the screen toward her. A photo. Manuel and a Korean man in an expensive suit, shaking hands outside the Shilla. The timestamp, 3 hours ago, before the mall. The man's face made Charlene's chest tighten. She'd seen him before. in a photo on Chong-sik's desk that he thought she hadn't noticed. "That's your cousin," she whispered. "That's my cousin." Chong-sik's voice was empty, flat, the voice of a man calculating exactly how much blood this would cost, which means Manuel didn't come to Seoul by accident. And suddenly Charlene understood. The slap, the public, humiliation, the hotel reservation in her name. This wasn't about Manuel being vindictive. This was a trap, and they'd both walked right into it. Charlene's hands shook as she stared at the photo, Manuel and Chong-sik's cousin smiling like old friends outside the most expensive hotel in Seoul. The timestamp mocked her. 3 hours before the slap, before them all, before everything. "He planned it," she whispered. "All of it." Chong-sik's expression was carved from ice. "The question is how much you knew." The words hit her like a physical blow. She stepped back, her spine hitting the wall. "You think I don't know what to think." His voice was too calm, too controlled. "You show up in Seoul 4 months ago with nothing, crash into me, marry me within a week, and now your ex-boyfriend, who you claim disappeared, is making deals with the one man who wants me dead." "I didn't know." Her voice cracked. "Chong-sik, I swear to God, I had no idea Manuel was even in Korea until today." He moved closer, and for the first time since she'd met him, Charlene felt the full weight of who he was, the Viper of Gangnam, the man whose name made grown men flinch. "My cousin offered Manuel money," Chong-sik said quietly, "enough to clear whatever debts he has and then some. All Manuel had to do was find you, provoke you publicly, make you look unstable." Because here's what Charlene was just beginning to understand. In Chong-sik's world, nothing happened by accident. Every move was calculated, every relationship weaponized, and trust was the most dangerous currency of all. But how would your cousin even know about Manuel? Her mind raced, desperate to make sense of this. "That's what I'm trying to figure out." His eyes searched her face like he was looking for cracks, for lies. "Someone told him about your past, about Atlanta, about the loan sharks and the ex-boyfriend who destroyed you." Charlene's breath caught. "The wedding. I filled out papers. Background check. They asked about previous relationships, past addresses, debts. Standard procedure for anyone entering the family." Chong-sik's jaw tightened. "My cousin has access to those files. He must have seen Manuel's name and tracked him down." Relief flooded through her so fast she felt dizzy. "So you believe me?" The silence stretched too long. "I want to," he said finally, and the honesty in his voice was worse than accusation. "But believing you could cost me everything." The confession hung between them like broken glass, sharp, dangerous. "Then don't." Charlene forced the words out past the tightness in her throat. "Don't believe me. Divorce me. Take your cousin's deal and save your inheritance." Something flickered in his eyes. "You'd walk away that easily?" "To protect you." "Yes." And she meant it. Somewhere between spilled soju and silent breakfasts and the way he looked at her when he thought she wasn't watching, she'd started caring about this dangerous, damaged man far more than was safe. Chong-sik stared at her for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call. "Minjun, I need everything on Manuel Webb. Bank records, phone logs, travel history." A pause. "And check the household staff. Someone gave out the penthouse number. I want to know who." He hung up and turned back to her. "Someone inside helped set this up. Someone with access to private information." "You have a traitor." "I have several." He said it like he was discussing the weather. "In my business, loyalty is bought and sold like everything else. The question is which one helped my cousin." Charlene wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly cold. "What happens now?" "Now we wait for Minjun's report." His expression softened slightly. "And you stay here, where I can keep you safe." "I'm not afraid of Manuel." "You should be." Chong-sik moved closer, his hand lifting to brush her uninjured cheek. "The Manuel you knew stole your money and broke your heart. This Manuel is being paid to destroy you, and desperate men do desperate things. And if you think the tension between them is unbearable now, just wait. Because what Min Jun's about to discover will prove that Manuel and the cousin aren't working alone. Someone much closer has been betraying them all along. "Why are you really doing this?" she whispered. "Protecting me. Fighting for this marriage. You could find another wife. Someone without my baggage." Chong-sik's thumb traced her jawline, and Charlene's pulse jumped. "You think I haven't asked myself that every day for 3 months? And I don't have a good answer." His voice dropped, rough. "Just that somewhere between that first night and now, this stopped being about the contract." Her heart hammered against her ribs. The air between them felt electric, charged with 3 months of careful distance finally crumbling. A sharp knock at the door shattered the moment. Min Jun entered without waiting, his expression grim. "We have a problem," he said in rapid Korean, then switched to English. "I found who gave out the penthouse number." Chong-sik went very still. "Who?" "Your head of security, Kim Tae-yang. He's been on your cousin's payroll for 6 months. Min Jun's jaw tightened. "Which means every movement you've made, every conversation in this penthouse, every security measure, your cousin has known about all of it." The words landed like grenades. Charlene watched the color drain from Chong-sik's face, watched him process the depth of the betrayal. Tae-yang. His voice was barely above a whisper. "I've known him for 15 years. I'm sorry, boss, but there's more." Min Jun pulled out a tablet, tapped the screen. Hotel security footage from 3 hours ago, the parking garage. The video showed Manuel getting out of a black sedan, but it was the driver that made Charlene's blood run cold. A woman, Korean, expensive clothes. And when she turned toward the camera, Charlene recognized her face from the family photos in Chong-sik's study. "That's your cousin's wife," Charlene breathed, "which means this goes higher than I thought." Chong-sik's voice was flat, empty, the voice of a man watching his family betray him in real time. "They're coordinating. Manuel is just the weapon." Min Jun nodded. "I have 3 men watching Manuel at the Shilla, but boss, if Tae-yang's been feeding them information, they know about our security protocols. They know our weaknesses. Then we change everything." Chong-sik's expression went cold, calculating. "Pull Tae-yang's access. I want new security teams, new protocols, new safe houses, and get our lawyer on the phone." "Already done." "Good." Chong-sik turned to Charlene, and something in his eyes made her chest tighten. "Pack a bag. We're leaving." "Leaving? Where?" "Somewhere my cousin doesn't know about. Somewhere Tae-yang never had access to." His hand found hers, fingers intertwining. "Somewhere I can keep you safe while I dismantle this piece by piece." The possessiveness in his touch, the fierce protectiveness in his voice, it should have scared her. Instead, Charlene felt something warm unfurl in her chest. "What about Manuel?" A dark smile curved Chong-sik's lips. "Let him enjoy his champagne at the Shilla. Let him think he's won." His grip on her hand tightened. "By tomorrow, he'll understand what happens when you come after what's mine." Min Jun cleared his throat. "Boss, one more thing. Tae-yang just sent a message before I locked him out of the system." "What did it say?" Min Jun's expression went carefully neutral. "He said to check your wife's phone, that there's something you need to see." Every eye in the room turned to Charlene. Her stomach dropped. "My phone?" Chong-sik's hand released hers, and the loss of contact felt like abandonment. "Where is it?" "In my purse, in the bedroom. But I don't know what he's talking about." The doubt was back in Chong-sik's eyes, that terrible, devastating uncertainty. "Get it," he said quietly. Charlene's hands shook as she walked to the bedroom, retrieved her phone from her bag. No new messages, no missed calls, nothing unusual. She handed it to Chong-sik, her heart in her throat. He unlocked it. He knew her password, had insisted on it for security, and scrolled through her messages. His expression didn't change, didn't give anything away. Then he stopped. His jaw tightened. "What?" Charlene moved closer. "What is it?" He turned the screen toward her. A text thread she'd never seen before. Messages between her number and an unknown contact. Dozens of them, dating back 2 weeks. Messages planning Manuel's arrival, discussing the mall confrontation, coordinating the hotel reservation. Messages that made it look like she'd been conspiring with her ex all along. "I didn't send these," Charlene whispered. "Chong-sik, I swear I didn't." But the look on his face said he didn't know what to believe anymore, and Tae-young, wherever he was probably laughing. Charlene stared at the text messages on her phone like they were written in a language she didn't understand. Her number, her words, conversations she'd never had planning a betrayal she'd never committed. "I didn't send these." Her voice came out small, broken. "Chong-sik, you have to believe me." He was so still he could have been carved from stone. Only his eyes moved, scanning the screen, reading evidence that damned her with every word. "They're dated," he said finally. 2 weeks of planning, meeting times, the exact location in the mall. Someone planted them. Tae-yang had access to everything. Tae-yang doesn't have the technical skill to spoof text messages. Chong-sik's voice was too calm. That requires professional work. Min-jun stepped forward. "Boss, I can have our tech team analyze the phone. Check for remote access. Cloned SIM cards. Do it." Chong-sik handed him the phone without looking away from Charlene. "I want results in an hour." Min-jun disappeared, leaving them alone in the suffocating silence. "You don't believe me," Charlene whispered. Chong-sik's jaw tightened. "I want to. But you don't." The words tasted like ash. 3 months, and you still think I'm capable of this. Because here's what Charlene didn't realize yet. Trust wasn't the real issue. Fear was. Chong-sik had watched his parents burn because he hadn't been fast enough to save them, and now, staring at evidence that his wife might be his enemy, he was terrified of being too slow again. "Then let me go," she said. "Divorce me, I'll disappear." "Is that what you want?" His voice was dangerous. "To run? I want you to look at me and see the truth." Her voice cracked. "But I can't make you believe me." Chong-sik moved so fast she didn't have time to react. One moment he was across the room, the next his hands were on her shoulders, backing her against the wall. "You don't get to run," he said, his voice rough. "Not from this, not from me." "Why not? You've already decided I'm guilty." "I've decided nothing." His forehead dropped to hers, and she could feel him trembling. "Even looking at that evidence, even knowing I should walk away, I still can't let you go." Her breath caught. "Chong-sik, I've built my entire life on control, on never letting emotions cloud my judgment." His hands framed her face. "And then you crashed into me and laughed, and suddenly nothing makes sense anymore." "The smart move is to believe the evidence," he whispered, "to protect myself." "Then do the smart thing." "I can't." His thumb brushed her cheekbone. "Because the only thing scarier than you betraying me is losing you and finding out I was wrong." Chong-sik's phone buzzed. He pulled back, glanced at the screen. His expression went carefully blank. "Min-jun wants me in the security office. He found something. And if you're hoping this is where they discover proof of Charlene's innocence and everything gets resolved, think again. Because what Min-jun found is about to make this nightmare infinitely worse." "I'm coming with you," Charlene said. The security office was all concrete walls and flickering monitors. Min-jun stood in front of a laptop, his expression grim. "Show me," Chong-sik said. Min-jun pulled up a screen, lines of code, metadata. The messages were created using a SIM cloning attack. Someone duplicated Mrs. Cho's SIM card, sent the messages from a different device, then synced them to her phone remotely. Relief flooded through Charlene. "So I didn't send them. I'm innocent." "Yes." Min-jun's voice was careful. "But the cloning requires physical access to the original phone for at least 30 seconds, which means whoever did this had to touch Mrs. Cho's phone in the last 2 weeks. "Someone in this house," Chong-sik said quietly. Charlene's mind raced. The housekeepers, the chef, the security team. Then, "Ji-hai," she breathed. "My assistant. She's the only one who handles my phone regularly." Jihai had been assigned to Charlene the week after the wedding. Young, efficient, always smiling, something close to a friend. Where is she now? Chong-sik's voice was ice. Min-jun's expression darkened. She didn't show up for work today. Her apartment is empty. Neighbors said she left this morning with 2 suitcases. Find her. Not a request, a command. Chong-sik's phone rang. He answered, listened, and Charlene watched the color drain from his face. When? A pause. And the judge signed it? He hung up, and when he looked at Charlene, his expression was devastated. What happened? My cousin just filed for an emergency hearing, tomorrow at 9 a.m. His hands clenched. He's demanding the marriage be annulled on grounds of fraud. Charlene's stomach dropped. But we have proof now. The cloned SIM, it's not enough. His voice was hollow. The messages are fake, yes, but that doesn't prove our marriage is real. Doesn't prove we didn't stage everything. Min-jun cleared his throat. Boss, if the judge rules against you, tomorrow you lose everything. The company, the properties, everything transfers to your cousin. There has to be something we can do, Charlene said desperately. The only way to prove it's legitimate is to prove it's real. Chong-sik's eyes met hers. Not a contract, not a convenience, real. How? His smile was bitter. That's the problem. How do you prove love in a courtroom? The question hung between them, because they'd both been so careful, so distant, and now they had nothing to show for it but 3 months of separate bedrooms and feelings neither had been brave enough to name. They walked back to the penthouse in silence. When they entered, the space felt too empty. I should pack, Charlene said, in case the judge rules against us. Don't. Chong-sik's voice was sharp. Don't plan for losing. Someone has to be realistic. I said don't. He turned to face her, raw emotion in his expression. Because if I start accepting that I might lose you, I won't be able to fight. Her throat tightened. Chong-sik, I'm sorry. The words came out rough, broken. For doubting you, for not trusting you when it mattered, for being so damaged I can't see past my own fear. You had evidence. I had fear disguised as evidence. He moved closer, his hands hovering near her face, and I let it poison what we were building. We weren't building anything, she whispered. This was always a contract. Was it? His eyes searched hers, because it hasn't felt like a contract for a long time. And there it was. The truth neither of them had been brave enough to say. Before Charlene could respond, the lights went out. All of them. The entire penthouse plunged into darkness. Chong-sik's hand found hers immediately, pulling her close. Stay behind me. What's happening? I don't know, but in my world, when the power goes out, it's never an accident. Then she heard it. Footsteps in the hallway outside. Multiple people, moving fast. And Charlene realized with sudden, terrible clarity that while they'd been focused on courts and evidence and proving their marriage was real, someone had been planning something much more direct. The door to the penthouse exploded inward. The explosion threw Charlene into Chong-sik's chest. Through the smoke, 4 figures in black tactical gear emerged, moving with military precision. Chong-sik pulled a gun, shoved her toward the hallway. Get down! Gunfire erupted. The intruder dropped, and red emergency lights flickered on. Charlene saw the symbol on their gear, a small white crane. His cousin's security company, an assassination. Because here's what neither of them had considered. If Chong-sik died before the court hearing, the inheritance would automatically transfer to his cousin. No trial, just a tragic home invasion and a convenient widow. Chong-sik pressed his phone. A hidden door slid open. A panic room. Get inside. Code is 0847. Don't open it for anyone but me. Or Min-jun. He kissed her hard. I'm not losing you tonight. He shoved her through and slammed the door. The panic room had monitors showing security feeds. Charlene watched Chong-sik face down 3 armed men, precise shots to knees, shoulders. Disabling, not killing. Then the third intruder pulled off his mask. Tae-yang. You should have taken the deal, Tae-yang said. The window exploded. Min-jun's team rappelled through. A single shot dropped Tae Yang. Seconds later, it was over. "Charlene!" Chong-sik's voice cracked. "Open the door!" She ran to him, hands checking for injuries. "Are you hurt?" "We're both fine." His arms crushed her against his chest. Min-jun dragged Tae Yang forward. "Boss, we have him." "Put him somewhere secure." Chong-sik's voice was steel. "And get Judge Park on the phone." After Min-jun left, Chong-sik cupped Charlene's face. "Are you staying because you want to, or because you feel trapped?" She looked at this dangerous man who'd become more than a contract. "I'm terrified of your world, of how much I've started to care." She leaned into his touch. "But I'm staying, because I have something worth fighting for." His smile was devastating. "Yeah?" "Yeah," she kissed him. "So let's destroy your cousin." Min-jun's voice cut through. "Boss, Tae Yang's talking, says he has information about your parents' accident, says it wasn't an accident." Everything stopped. Chong-sik went very still. "Where is he?" And if you're thinking attempted murder is enough evidence to win this case, think again. Because what Tae Yang's about to confess will prove this conspiracy goes back 5 years, to the night Chong-sik's parents died. The office was small, windowless. Tae Yang sat zip-tied to a chair, blood soaking his leg. When Chong-sik entered, Tae Yang smiled. "Come to hear how your parents died?" Chong-sik's hand wrapped around his throat. "Talk." 5 years ago, your cousin paid me to cut the brake lines on your father's car, night before the Busan trip. Tae Yang coughed blood. "They never suspected. Neither did you." The silence was deafening. "Why?" The word came out broken. "Money. Your cousin wanted the inheritance. Simple business." Chong-sik's fist connected with Tae Yang's jaw. Once, twice. 5 years of grief, finally unleashed. When he stepped back, knuckles split, he was shaking. Charlene wrapped her arms around him. "I've got you." The Viper of Gangnam broke. Not loud, just a quiet collapse, breathing ragged. "I should have protected them," he whispered. "You couldn't have known." Her voice was steel. "They died because your cousin is a monster, and in 7 hours we're going to prove it." Min-jun cleared his throat. "I recorded everything. The confession, the home invasion. We have a pattern." "And if the judge doesn't see it?" Chong-sik's voice was raw. "Then we make him," Charlene said, "whatever it takes." Min-jun's phone buzzed. He answered, and his expression shifted to alarm. "What?" Chong-sik demanded. "Ji-hee. Border Patrol flagged her at Incheon Airport. Flight to Beijing in 2 hours. Stop her. She has diplomatic immunity, same as Manuel." Min-jun's jaw tightened. "And boss, she's carrying documents, marriage certificates, financial records, all showing your marriage was staged, forged signatures, backdated paperwork." Charlene's stomach dropped. "Our marriage is legal. Your cousins had months to create convincing forgeries. If Ji-hai gets those to the press before our hearing, the court of public opinion convicts us first." Chong-sik pulled out his phone, dialed. "Judge Park, I need an emergency injunction." He listened, and Charlene watched his expression harden. "What do you mean you can't? My cousin tried to have me killed tonight." His voice went dangerously quiet. "I see. Yes. Thank you." He hung up, fury barely contained. What did he say? That without concrete evidence linking Ji-hai to the conspiracy, he can't violate her immunity, and that if I continue with baseless accusations, he'll rule against us automatically. The words landed like blows. "So we just let her destroy us?" Charlene felt panic rising. "No!" Chong-sik's voice was ice. "We beat her there. If she's going to tell a story, we tell ours first." He turned to Min-jun. "Call every reporter who's ever covered my family. Get them to the courthouse at 8 a.m. I'm giving a press conference." "Boss, that's an hour before the hearing." "Exactly. We go public with everything. The home invasion, Tae Yang's confession, my parents' murder, my cousin's conspiracy." His eyes were black and bottomless. "We turn this into the scandal of the decade. And if it backfires?" Charlene's voice was small. Chong-sik's hand found hers. "Then we go down fighting, together." Min-jun nodded. "I'll set it up." Charlene looked at the blood on Chong-sik's knuckles, the exhaustion in his eyes, the fierce determination keeping him standing. "This is insane," she whispered. "I know. We could lose everything." "I know." He pulled her close. "But I'm done hiding. Done playing by rules my cousin keeps breaking. If we're going to burn, we're taking him with us." Dawn was breaking over Seoul. In 6 hours, they'd face a judge. In 1 hour, they'd face the cameras. And somewhere at Incheon Airport, Ji-hai was boarding a plane with documents that could destroy them both. But Chong-sik and Charlene had something his cousin could never understand. They had each other, and they were done running. The final battle was about to begin. The courthouse steps were swarming with reporters by the time Charlene and Chong-sik arrived. Flashes exploded like gunfire. Microphones thrust forward. Min Jun's security team formed a barrier, but the questions came anyway. "Mr. Cho, is it true your cousin tried to have you killed?" "Mrs. Cho, are the fraud allegations true?" Chong-sik's hand tightened on Charlene's as they climbed the steps. He looked every inch the Viper. Expensive suit perfectly tailored despite the sleepless night. Expression carved from ice. Only Charlene could feel the tremor in his grip. At the top, he turned to face the cameras. The crowd went silent. "My name is Cho Chong-sik, and I'm here to tell you the truth." His voice carried across the plaza. "Last night, 4 armed men broke into my home with orders to kill me. My head of security confessed to murdering my parents 5 years ago on my cousin's orders." Gasps rippled through the crowd. "My cousin has spent 6 months orchestrating fraud. He hired my wife's ex-boyfriend to provoke her. He planted evidence. He paid staff to betray us." Chong-sik's jaw tightened, all to steal an inheritance built on my parents' graves. Charlene watched reporters scribbling notes, filming, broadcasting live. No going back now. Today, a judge will decide if my marriage is legitimate. His eyes found Charlene's, and something soft broke through the ice. "But I want everyone to know, my marriage to Charlene Davis is the most real thing in my life. She's my wife, and I will burn down anyone who tries to take her from me." Then chaos erupted. But Chong-sik just took Charlene's hand and walked inside. Because here's what Jae-won didn't know yet. The press conference wasn't just about public opinion. It was about forcing the judge's hand. With cameras outside and the scandal breaking on social media, Judge Park couldn't quietly rule in Jae-won's favor without looking corrupt. Chong-sik had just turned a private hearing into a public trial. The courtroom was smaller than Charlene expected. At the plaintiff's table sat Jae-won and his lawyer. Expensive suits, smug confidence. Jae-won's smile was poison. "Cousin, very theatrical. Says the man who tried to have me killed." "All rise," the bailiff announced. "The Honorable Judge Park presiding." Judge Park entered, silver hair, sharp eyes. He surveyed the packed courtroom, expression suggesting he knew exactly what Chong-sik had done. "This was supposed to be a simple fraud case. Instead, I wake up to news of attempted murder." Judge Park's tone was dry. "Mr. Cho, your press conference was bold." "The truth often is, Your Honor." Judge Park turned to Jae-won. "Present your evidence." Jae-won's lawyer stood. "Your Honor, this marriage was a contract solely to satisfy Mrs. Cho's will. We have the signed agreement, financial records, witness statements. Furthermore, we have evidence Ms. Davis conspired with her ex-boyfriend, text messages, hotel reservations in her name." "Those were planted," Charlene said. "My phone was cloned. Ms. Davis, you'll have your chance," Judge Park said sternly. Their lawyer, Ms. Kang, stood. "Your Honor, marriages can evolve. What matters is the current state, not the origins." She presented evidence, the cloned SIM report, Tae-young's confession, home invasion footage, bank records showing Jae-won's payments. "We have testimony proving Mr. Cho Jae-won orchestrated conspiracy, including the murder of his cousin's parents 5 years ago." The courtroom erupted. Judge Park banged his gavel. "Order!" "And if you think this evidence guarantees victory, remember, Jae-won's lawyer has one final card to play, and it's going to force Charlene to put her heart on public record." Jae-won's lawyer stood. Your Honor, these allegations are conveniently timed, but what can't be faked is the fundamental question. Is this marriage real? He turned to Charlene. Ms. Davis, when did you first tell Mr. Cho you loved him? The question hung like a trap. You hesitate because you haven't, because this isn't love, it's a transaction. That's not true. Then tell the court, under oath, do you love Cho Chong-sik? Every eye turned to her. Chong-sik's hand found hers under the table. This was it, just the truth of what she felt. Yes, she said quietly, then louder. Yes, I love him. Since when? Breakfast 3 weeks ago. He made me coffee exactly how I like it without asking. He just knew. She looked at Chong-sik. I realized he'd been paying attention all along, that somewhere between a spilled drink and a contract marriage, I'd fallen in love with someone who really sees me. The courtroom was silent. You want to know if this marriage is real? It's more real than anything I've ever had. Her hand tightened on his, and I choose him. Every day. Judge Park looked at Chong-sik. Mr. Cho? Chong-sik stood. I spent 5 years building walls so high I forgot what it felt like to be human. Then Charlene crashed into me and laughed, and suddenly those walls didn't matter. His voice was rough. Is our marriage real? Your Honor, it's the only real thing in my life. Judge Park was quiet. Then he looked at Jae-won. Mr. Cho, Jae-won, I've reviewed the evidence. The bank transfers, the footage, the confession. His voice was hard. Regardless of how this marriage began, there is substantial evidence of criminal conspiracy on your part. Jae-won's face went pale.